Right, name, Dark Waters. One sentence summary. It takes an inexplicably large amount of time and energy to convince people that a big company poisoning the planet is a bad idea. Could you beat the villain? Hell yeah. So DuPont, they're dumping Teflon waste into a landfill and it's leaking into the water source and poisoning this town. Nobody wants to admit that's a bad thing because of all the money involved, and it takes all of Mark Ruffalo's corporate defender know-how to fight the power. And there's a particular trial where the plan is to say, look, DuPont have said, you know, this much Teflon in your water is bad for you, and there's, you know, this much instead of this much. And then the lawyers who definitely work for DuPont actually say, well, actually, it's not this much that's bad for you, it's this much. What I would do in that instance is get a glass of the river water, hand it to the scientist and say, okay, because you've said this is safe, you'd be happy to drink that, wouldn't you? And then obviously they wouldn't. To be fair though, that is what happened on an episode of How I Met Your Mother, so. How would you improve the film? Too many establishing shots. The film would have been about 5 minutes shorter if it wasn't panning over locations all the time. And the film follows Mark Ruffalo's character for about 20 odd years. And although he gets a bit fat and Anne Hathaway changes her hairstyle, and the kids do grow up, to be fair, no one really ages that much. And at the end, when he's at Benihana with his family, Mark Ruffalo seems thinner than he was like the scene before, which is weird. There's a farmer character who reminded me of Sal from Futurama, and yes, I did have to look up his name. Anyway, he says to Mark Ruffalo, look at them stones, they're as white as the hairs on my head. Which is weird, because he's got mostly dark hair. He's got a couple of greys at the side, but it's a very odd expression. What kind of office has a room spare that they can just fill with boxes of evidence and like seemingly let a guy go through for months, if not years at a time? Anne Hathaway's all like, have I ever complained about your obsession? Yeah, you have. Do you remember that time you kicked off because he ripped up the carpets and he took all the pots and pans out of the cupboards because he was trying to stop you and your family from being poisoned from this chemical that he now knows is very dangerous? You kicked off. Also in that scene, because she's all like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, can I explain this to you? And then he like info dumps to her. I assume that's just so like the audience can catch up on the story, but it just gave the impression that the husband and wife do not talk about their days. You shouldn't really put stuff in a glove box whilst you're driving. You should focus on the road, even if that stuff later, you know, turns out to be vital to the plot. You need to stop making him feel like a failure. Calm down, Anne Hathaway's character. You were doing the exact same thing that very morning. Also, I refer back to the pots and pan argument of many years prior. And in that scene where Anne Hathaway is making Mark Ruffalo's character feel like a failure, she's like, oh, you're a bad dad and you're a bad husband. You got 3 kids, love. If you don't like it, stop putting out. Why did Mark Ruffalo think that DuPont were going to car bomb him? Because like, it made sense for Tom Cruise in American Made, because it was like the cartels and that's what they did. But I don't think it was ever mentioned that, like, oh yeah, they murder people, as well as, you know, casually poisoning the town. Although technically, I guess they are murdering people, because they're poisoning them. Anyways, in that scene, I think it might have just been a continuity error, but when Mark Ruffalo left his car, the windows were wound up. And I'm sure they were like open a tiny bit when he got back to it. Like he didn't go, oh, that's weird. So I think that was just a, you know, whatever. The farmer character, Sal from Futurama, I know he was under a lot of pressure, but if he was rational and polite and explained himself, instead of just barging into an office he hadn't been invited to and, you know, leaving weird, crazy videotapes, I think he would have got stuff done quicker. You know, it's all about playing the game. And the film presents it that Mark Ruffalo hadn't spoken to the scientist lady who was in charge of the medical trials for 7 years. Surely, after a couple of months, if they weren't returning your phone calls, you'd stop paying them. I bet they'd get in touch with you pretty quickly after them. It was weird that seemingly years later, Mark Ruffalo remembered that little girl he saw on a bike with a dodgy smile. like rusty teeth. I think I heard it said. So yeah, that was weird. He would remember, I'm sure, the videotapes he saw of the dead cows and the amateur autopsies. But like that one little girl he drove past once, that's a bit creepy. Don't remember that. I did not trust that dog that kept doing the loop-de-loop. He looked as mad as the cows. And also, why did that one cow do a jump scare? That was strange. Sal from Futurama, you gotta take this money and leave this place. I can't, it's too late. Me and the wife, we got the cancers. Okay. Doesn't mean you have to stay there and continue drinking the poisoned water though. Also, you've got 2 daughters. Think of them. I wouldn't drink that if I were you. He doesn't sound really anything like that, but that's the voice I'm doing. No shit, why would Mark Ruffalo even consider drinking the water in that town based on everything he knows? It was really weird. So there's a woman and her second husband, because the first husband is dead. And they were like, well, you know, this is the price of living in this town. So she and it seems the rest of the community suspect that working at DuPont and living close to DuPont is actually quite bad for you because everyone they know's got cancer. But then, you know, they're happy to do that because they're getting paid. They're kind of getting what they deserve. Mark Ruffalo convinces them, actually, you know what? It's not okay for this company to poison you. Let's sue them. They sue them, and then there's kind of slow progress, and they start kicking off. Like, oh, why is nothing happening so quickly? Well, you were just sitting there being poisoned, happy for it to be okay, you dicks. You know what is weird? The film spans like a number of years, but every scene seems to be shot in like the autumn or the winter. And why include Bucky the deformed guy, not his actual name, what Bucky was, because it didn't like inspire Mark Ruffalo to like continue his good work, or he didn't like realise something. It was just a weird like, oh, this is a guy at the gas station. I've seen pictures of him when he's a baby. And DuPont tested their dangerous chemicals by giving them to their workers in cigarettes, like laced cigarettes. Number 1, that's just straight up evil. Number 2, wouldn't it make more sense to give it to them like in an apple or something, so you could be sure what was causing the cancer? Why were all the waiters in that like fancy dinner at the start African American? That was strange. What was the bit with the teens skinny dipping in the 70s right at the start? Number 1, like they may not have seen Jaws yet, so you can sort of see why they would think that was a good idea. But like there's 2 dudes and a chick, and the dude is like, come on buddy, get in, and like him and the girl are already swimming. Like, why are you why 3's a crowd? That's it. Anyways, doesn't matter. The kids were doing the skinny dipping, they get chased off by a man spraying chemicals in the water or whatever. I expected one of those teenagers to like reappear later in the film as an adult, probably one who's like dying of cancer mysteriously or something. But they didn't. It was just very strange. Rating out of 5 beers, I give this a 2. It was good to, you know, find out about the evil company doing stuff. But a man who is kind of just sad and researching for 20 odd years, it's not really a thrill ride of a film, to be honest. But there you go.